is WaXed.
Well, holla, you surfers, you goddamn nerds. I'm just kidding. We're all part of the tribe. How are the breaks looking? Got some lefts, some rights, some green rooms, A-frames?
A weekly surf talk radio show.
Hopefully when you go out there, you'll find your green card and surf on the home. Poser.
With your hosts, Cyrus, Saatsaz.
All I need are some tasty waves, cool buzz, and I'm fine.
Omar Etcheverry.
Locals only, you grommet. Stay off my beach!
And Natalie Rose with the news and weekend surf report.
Surfing is out of this world. You just can't imagine the thrill of shooting the curl. It positively surpasses every living emotion I've ever had.
On ESPN 1700.
Good morning, San Diego. Welcome to another edition of WaXed Surf Talk Radio. Apologies for the slightly late start and the technical difficulties there. A little disheveled this morning. I'm a born and raised Northern Californian. I have no shame in that, and as such, when my teams, the two that I follow with a fervor, the San Francisco 49ers, my sincerest apologies for Super Bowl 29 back in 1995, for those of you that remember, you Charger fans. And the Golden State Warriors, those are my teams. And when one or both are in the playoffs, I'm staying up late and watching it, such as that fantastic Warriors victory last night over the Nuggets. What a game. So I stayed up late, a little tired. We're going to have a great show today regardless. In about 5 minutes or so, the greatest big wave surfer on the planet, Greg Long, is going to join the program. He is, without a doubt, in my opinion, the king of big wave surfing right now. That's a dial tone. You can pop that down or off, please, so it's not on the air right now. Thank you. I'm guessing Natalie Rose is trying to get Omar Etcheverry on the phone right now. She is not being successful at the moment. But anyways, Greg Long will join the program very shortly. My partner in crime, Omar Etcheverry, will join us in just a moment. We're also going to have a weekend surf report for you. Want to mention our website, waxedradio.com, is up and running. Still a few kinks we're going to fix, but it's going strong. If you love pictures of the hottest surf chicks on the planet, go to the site. If you want to catch our past shows, go to the site. It's WaXed Radio, WaXed radio.com. This is our 7th show. We've had a fantastic lineup of guests so far. Pat O'Connell joined the program. We had Lakey Peterson last week, Nat Young, Kalani Robb, Sean Dollar, Cassia Metter. They've been on the show. They were great interviews, and you can go back and listen to those by going to our website, waxedradio.com, and follow us on Twitter at waxedradio. Definitely follow us there. We're sharing some great stuff, and we also are having contests on the reg. We're going to be especially very shortly, and the only way to get in those contests, we had our first one last week, is by following us on Twitter at WaXed Radio. Let's take a quick break. I'm going to go help Natalie try to get O-Dog on the phone, and when we come back, we'll have a weekend surf report. This is WaXed on ESPN 1700.
Visit our website, waxedradio.com, to get complete show podcasts and follow us on all social media at WaXed Radio. Now, here's your weekend surf report.
I'm actually curious to hear this myself. It's been a mixed bag for the past week or so. Some days the surf has been super fun. Some days the surf has been just flat. Natalie Rose, how is the surf going?
Well, it's still pretty small out there, but there is a south swell that's going to be building all weekend, leaving waves anywhere from 1 to 3 feet. Sets are inconsistent, which is horrible, and tides are pretty high in the morning and then draining out in the afternoon. Winds are expected to pick up as the day goes on. I suggest this weekend you grab that longboard, you go out there, you hang out with your friends, hang some heels, have some fun, bang some rails, because you know what, there's really not that much surf. If you hit like a south-facing beach, you're expected to catch more waves, but really it's just all about going out and having fun because the water's warm, the weather's supposed to be nice, but really there is no waves.
The water is certainly starting to warm up. I mean, I was on the verge of sweating in my wetsuit the other day. I'd say the countdown has begun. The date I always set for ditching the wetsuit is Memorial Day weekend, so we're about a month away or so. Omar Etcheverry, I believe we have him on the phone right now. O-Dog, how you doing, brother?
Good morning.
Morning. Natalie, if you could pod down that music just a little bit so we can hear ourselves and other people can hear us as well. Thank you. O-Dog, how's the surf up in Santa Cruz?
The waves are flat. We had a small southwest ground swell running last week. The best days were Wednesday and Thursday. Yesterday we had a petering 2 to 3 foot waves. Today is about 1 to 2 foot and small. We look like a really good south swell coming in towards the mid to end of next week. Looks really solid, so should be really good down there and good up here. But I recommend grabbing a beer for this weekend and a barbecue and eating and getting drunk and being hungover until next week.
Beautiful.
That sounds like a good idea too.
It does. Unless you want to just get wet and get your paddle strength going, there's not a whole lot going on. There was a little south bump earlier this week. That was fun, but yeah, that's faded for the most part. Our friend Mike, who runs a terrific surf forecast site, PacificWaveWriter.com. That's PacificWaveWriter.com. He tweeted at us. Our Twitter handle is @WaxedRadio. He wrote, thigh-high set waves are possible at the beaches south of Ventura midday. That's where he's based in Ventura. In summary, sunny, no wind, there's no contest at Ventura, and there's no surf. A clam digger's low tide is draining the last bit of energy from the surf this morning. So that's your forecast slightly north of here in Ventura, courtesy of PacificWaveWriter.com. They tweeted at us at our handle, Waxed Radio. And that's your surf forecast for the weekend. Thank you, folks. Let's get the greatest big wave surfer on the planet, Greg Long, next here on Waxed on ESPN 1700.
Visit our website, waxedradio.com, to get complete show podcasts and follow us on all social media at Waxed Radio. Now, more Waxed.
Welcome back, San Diego, Orange County, coastal Los Angeles. That is our audience where the ESPN 1700 signal reaches. You can also listen to us online by going to ESPNradio1700.com. The signal streams there as well. You know, the last time we had pretty much every time we've had our next guest on the show, or at least in whatever show Omar and I have been doing, it's always been somewhere where he can't hear it at home. For the first time ever, from his home base in San Clemente, he can actually listen to the program. I'm talking about the greatest big wave surfer on the planet. I don't think there's any question about that. An absolute pleasure to have a good friend of the program back on the show, Greg Long. Greg, welcome, brother. How you doing?
Gentlemen, doing great. Good to hear from you.
Yeah, likewise, dude. How have you been, man? You're on the road all the time. Where'd you just recently come back from?
I was just in Madagascar for a couple weeks. A little bit of an adventure trip over there with a good friend Twiggy from South Africa.
Yes.
A couple years ago, we found some pretty special waves and needed to return.
Okay, that's you said that so nonchalantly, like, oh, it was just in Madagascar. Yeah, it was just Twiggy and I. We just went there and came back. That's not exactly like the most normal place in the world to go to. Is there I mean, what's it like in Madagascar?
Aside from all the big wave surfing, kind of the adventure travel thing is something I've been so passionate about from a really young age. First trips I ever really remember surfing were in a Volkswagen bus with my dad down in Baja.
Mm-hmm.
So that's always kind of stuck with me. So every year I try and do a couple trips to just these really remote, obscure places. Really just spend the time and kind of absorb the culture. And 2 years ago we spent 2 months there and found a couple of phenomenal waves. Just never really got the swell for them, and been telling myself I'm going to go back ever since. So that's what we did. Went back and hiked into a couple of these places and had some unbelievable waves by ourselves.
And I've always respected that about you. You're a very well-rounded person. You're definitely an intellectual. So you went to Madagascar in this case strictly for travel and to kind of get enlightened. It wasn't a surf trip?
No. It was. I mean, obviously the waves were just the icing on the cake. But yeah, the way this trip happens. I mean, it's 4 days of travel, and then to actually get to the waves that we're surfing, it's a 2-day hike through the jungle.
Oh my!
And so you're backpacking in everything that you need to live for the week, and once you're out there, you're as remote as you're going to be just about anywhere in the world. So a very fun couple of days to kind of detach from the world and just surf perfect waves with your friend and walk out of there without a soul knowing or hearing about it.
How are the waves?
What are the waves like down there?
Yeah.
There's a couple of reef passes and point breaks that right up there world class as good as anywhere I've surfed in the world. It's just really fickle for swell, and they said actually getting there in the first place is your biggest challenge, and then you've got sharks and crocodiles and a whole world of stuff to kind of keep you on your toes, but it all adds to the excitement.
Oh, that's it. Just sharks, crocodiles, and a hike through the jungle that took days. That's just nothing.
That's all. No big deal.
Nothing at all. And how was it? Did you guys get it perfect?
We had a lot of fun. Yeah, we got some pretty fantastic waves, so we're stoked. And now I'm back home getting geared up for the Big Wave Awards this coming Friday.
That's right, and we'll get to that in a second. For most people, perfect waves would be like 3 to 5 feet, glassy, clean. But then you and Twiggy are like two of the greatest big wave surfers on the planet, if not the greatest. What's perfect to you guys? What were the conditions there?
That was actually a break from the big wave scene. What we were surfing there was 6 8-foot faces, beautiful right-hand point breaks and passes. So that was a warm welcome after a rather long, grueling winter with some pretty intense ups and downs. But it's one of those things. You only get so many days of big waves every single year that if that's all you're riding, in my opinion, you're really selling yourself short and missing out on, some of the more fun sessions I have. I love surfing, regardless of size, 2 feet, on up. Obviously, I get, a greater challenge and, more exciting and thrill out of riding the big waves. But at the same time, I'm not going to walk away from, a fun, 2-foot beach break or, a head-high point break. That's, it's all part of the game and just one of the many reasons why I love surfing.
Beautiful, absolutely. And we're joined by Greg Long here on WaXed. Speaking of the Billabong XXL Awards, which is happening next Friday, I mean, you're the king of these ceremonies. You usually have like a huge party leading into the the whole event. You've won, if I'm not mistaken, the most awards, and you could correct me on that because you're a Billabong team rider in addition to just owning these award shows. What are you up for this year?
I'll correct you right now that Shane Dorian's actually trumped me by quite a number. He's, in my opinion, the undisputed king of big wave riding. But this year I have a nomination for the Ride of the Year for a barrel that I had at Jaws back in October of 2012, and for Performer of the Year as well.
Oh, and Performer of the Year is kind of like a overall well-rounded kind of...
That's it. They kind of take into consideration all the big wave sessions that happened, around the globe in the last, 365 days, and who they felt was, at, the most locations, constantly performing the best.
Now, every year you... Dog, do you have a question, by the way? I'm sorry.
Dude, how was that ride at Jaws? I mean, that thing was... it's going to go down in history, I think. That thing was insane. I mean, what was it like to be on that wave? I mean,
I appreciate it. That was the most, one of, if not the most intense waves of my life. Jaws is unquestionably the most difficult and intimidating to ride. That when you're sitting out there, there's this giant wall that stretches into the channel, but the way that it bends around the reef so much, you'll take off and it'll look like, you're way too deep, but it'll actually kind of start bending towards you, so you're not as deep as you actually think. So it's a crazy mind game, when you're paddling into a wave, just looking at it saying, there's no way I can make this. And then actually committing and going, and, you in fact, we've learned that you can. That particular wave, I've studied, the lineup out there very extensively, and I know there are certain swell directions and waves, that'll give you a good entrance in from way out the back and give you the time to set up for that barrel section, because it usually all happens so quick that, you're just surviving, you're not actually surfing it. And, I took off on that wave, and I put my head down, and it's like, there's no way you're ever going to make this, but that's usually what you say before you catch the wave of your life, right? The ride of your life is going to be the one you think you're never going to make, and I just set a good early high line into it, and as I said, the wave kind of folds back on the reef, so you're not as deep as you think, and I had one direction to go, which was through the barrel on that one, and biggest, heaviest, and intense barrel of my life, and got spit out the other end, and unfortunately tripped on the way out and kind of cartwheeled over the handlebars, but still the hard part had been done, so I was pretty happy with that one.
That was an exclamation point, so it's all good.
Yeah.
The cartwheel in the end. I always love that when people do that at the end of a big ride. So wait, so you're saying now, out of all the spots you surf in the world, the photos of you surfing, we're joined by Greg Long here on WaXed. The photos that fascinate me the most are when you're down at Puerto Escondido, because these waves sometimes are like double, triple overhead. It's a beach break, so you know if you wipe out, it's going to be nasty, and the waves are already pitching harder than normal, and it's just heavy and thick. And those are the ones that always stick out to me because you get these super deep barrels when you're surfing at Puerto. You're saying the barrel at Jaws was actually more impressive to you than what you surfed down in Mexico?
There's a pretty distinct difference in energy in the two waves. Puerto, is obviously so challenging because it's a shifting beach break, and by no means am I taking anything away from, the intensity of it or, the power that it has. But, it Jaws, it comes out of such deep water, and it focuses, such a massive swell energy all into one short area, where Puerto's kind of dispersed up and down the beach, and there's just a volume of energy, at Jaws, at Biahi, that you don't really find too many other places. Mavericks is similar, to where it'll focus one single swell energy into one specific place, but the way that the reef is shaped and that it folds in on itself, you've got water coming in at you from all different directions, and you've got the usually the horrendous trade winds blowing up the face, and you got the rocks, literally 2-3 waves away. If you do fall, you're washed up against the cliff. And so everything about the place compounded into one. It's hands down the most intimidating.
That's crazy. O-Dog, you have a question?
So you're talking about all these waves throughout the world and discovering new waves and the waves that have the most energy. So it seems like over the last couple of years we've discovered a couple new waves, or a couple new waves have been, publicized. Are there any more out there? I mean, as far as, the mega waves like Jaws and Cortez and Mavericks. I've been dying to ask you this question because I think out of anyone in the whole globe, probably you and Twiggy would have the best idea. Are there more out there? What do you think? Do you think there's some more mega waves out there that can offer, 60, 100-foot rides?
I do. The problem is accessibility to them. I spend half my year, living down in South Africa, and I'll tell you what I've seen, happening up the west coast, West Africa. There's giant outer bombies, as we're driving by and exploring, that are easily 50, 60 feet, but then you run into problems of access points, and then places that are extremely fickle for weather, and you really get into an area where you're taking excessive risks, and then you kind of need to weigh out the risks versus the rewards, and and on those days we have known big waves that are going to be giant and producing phenomenal surf. So it's a hard one to find new big waves, and especially now there's an abundance of them in the areas that we do know. So usually in order to get another good big wave, you've got to walk away from somewhere that's perfect and huge on the same day. So that's always a tough one, but by all means I wouldn't hesitate to say that there's still a handful out there that have yet to be discovered. You're just going to have to go a bit farther off the beaten path and put in a little bit more energy and effort to get to them.
And
well, I'm sure that'll be you.
Yeah, exactly. If anybody's going to do, and you're right. I mean, it's all about convenience is probably the biggest factor, because I'm guessing the coast of Alaska, coast of Canada, like you said, Africa. There's probably a lot of places where these huge waves are breaking, but who wants to go all the way out there? You know what I'm saying?
Exactly.
Like,
anywhere you point your finger where you see these massive storms in the North Pacific, South Pacific, South Atlantic, the closer you are to the storm, the bigger it's going to be, and at some point you're going to find a window of good weather, and there's guaranteed reef passes and giant deep water outer reefs that are holding these waves. But in order to get to them and put in the time and the effort and have the infrastructure to do it and do it safely, which is the most important part of what we're doing. It's a huge undertaking and endeavor. So more often than not, it's easier to just jump that flight to Hawaii or wherever else.
Absolutely, and we're joined by the greatest big wave surfer on the planet, Greg Long, here on WaXed. You know, the Billabong XXL Awards are next Friday. Greg, you've won a handful of these things, and I thought you'd won it the most, but then you corrected me and said Shane Dorian actually trumped you, which is not too shabby. If anybody has more than you, Shane Dorian. All right, that's cool.
The most deserving in the world.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, the guy's his accomplishments run very long. But, you know, I'm finally going to make it to one of these award ceremonies, so I'm looking forward to downing a shot with you, at least one. My producer, Natalie Rose, is here. Greg, you're going to be very impressed when you meet her. And I'm going to hand her off to you, and I'm just going to walk away, and you guys can just hang out for the rest of the night. But all kidding aside, she has a question for you. Shoot away, Natalie.
Okay, Greg. So
Yes.
every week, I'll tell people come up to me like, "Oh, who are you gonna have on the show?" and stuff like that. And when I told them that I was having you on the show, all the ladies wanted to know if you were single or not.
Hey now.
If I'm single right now,
So Natalie's the one that wants to know this. I like that deflection.
No.
So I have a friend who.
Cover.
to answer that one, no, I'm not officially seeing anybody right now.
Beautiful. It's the only way to fly, brother.
So ladies, hey.
So Natalie, hey.
No.
I love that disguise, dude. That was funny.
Until after
Lord,
next
Natalie.
weekend.
Yeah. What's that, O-Dog?
Until after next weekend.
Yes, exactly. All right, thank you, Natalie. We're joined by Greg Long here on WaXed. You know, you've accomplished more than anybody on the big wave scene, certainly. Back when Dungeons had a contest, I don't know when the last time was that, you know, they had one, and I don't know if they're having one again, but it was a big deal for a while. You won that event. You won a surf contest at Mavericks, and then you won at Waimea, which, you know, from a prestige perspective, you'd have to say Waimea was the biggest win. And then this year you won the Big Wave World Tour. Out of all these accomplishments, what are you most proud of?
You know, all the accomplishments and awards and accolades are a byproduct of, you know, just my love and passion for, you know, surfing big waves.
Mm-hmm.
That, you know, my biggest accomplishment, as I see and I feel it, is just, you know, creating this opportunity and being able to live this lifestyle that I do. That there's not a single day that I wake up that I just don't, you know, feel like I'm the luckiest person in the world living, you know, my dream.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, that's, I guess, you know, the ultimate goal, you know, which I'd set myself, you know, for myself when I was a kid, you know, was one day, you know, to be a professional surfer and to, you know, have this lifestyle that I'd, you know, seen, you know, in the magazines and all that. You know, so that being the bigger, I guess, you know, accomplishment or the biggest of my life. You know, if you were to define it then in terms of, you know, awards and competitions and all that, you know, winning the Eddie, that's, you know, unquestionably the most prestigious big wave contest in the world, you know, with the history and legacy behind it. And
tell the audience, Greg, tell the audience real quick, who did you beat at Waimea? Who finished second?
Well, it's a field of 24 invitees, a lot of, you know, Hawaiian, you know, big wave surfers, a crew of internationals.
But who's the runner-up?
You're fishing for who finished second place, which was Kelly Slater.
Oh, there you go. So you beat Kelly Slater at Waimea. There you go.
So yeah, no, that was without a doubt. You know, you put it in the spectrum of, you know, surfing competitions, the greatest achievement of my life.
Beautiful. And brag, dude. I mean, and you're a humble guy, dude, and we respect that. But brag about that, dude. And you've done so much. Man.
I'll let you guys do that for me.
All right, fair enough. O-Doc, you got a question for Greg Long?
Yeah, I do. Okay, so the seems like the popularity of tow surfing has died quite a bit over the last, I'd say, 2 years. Guys are charging. They're doing so many more paddle-ins. I mean, do you see that trend continuing? Do you see that that in the future, more paddling?
I do. That is, you know, the true and ultimate challenge in big wave riding. There's without a doubt a time and a place for tow surfing. That, you know, there's still swells that are, you know, simply too big or too, you know, conditions don't permit, or, you know, certain waves like Chopu that'll get to a size where you just physically can't paddle it anymore, and you're putting yourself in danger. And but until you reach that point, you know, paddle surfing is what, you know, it really, you know, brings about, you know, that ultimate, you know, challenge, you against, you know, nature, and it's based, you know, entirely upon yourself, not somebody, towing you into a wave. Even though we do have, a huge safety net of people looking after us, it's, ultimately the way I see and feel it when I'm out there, everything that I've learned in my surfing life, goes into each one of those sessions when I'm out there. My wave judgment, my physical conditioning, mental conditioning, in order to, commit and put myself in the right place to catch one of those waves. So, and that's what's amazing about our sport is, no two waves are ever the same, no two swells, conditions are always going to be different. And, huge advancements in forecasting technology and equipment, it's just allowing us every single year to, continually improve. And with that, we're realizing that, we're still, pretty far from, I guess, reaching, the outermost limits of what's possible. Mm-hmm. And even then, you've got, some individuals amongst kind of this big wave, community who, are always and going to continually be looking to, push themselves and find their outermost limits. So, and that's what's so great about it. That when you kind of sitting here and maybe, doubting or questioning, like, you look at your friend who's like, I think we can do it. And it's like, well, then you've got your, your partner to kind of help, inspire you and push you to find out if it's possible or not. And so every single year, I say, oh no, that was, the biggest or the best, and how is it ever going to, go anywhere, beyond what we just did? And sure enough, every single year, we find, a way to do that, or at least try. And
mm-hmm.
Definitely. Paddle surfing definitely seemed like it experienced that in the last 2 years. With people like you and like you said earlier, Shane Dorian. I think you two pushed the limits of paddle surfing these last 2-3 years. Like, dude, hands down, you guys are crazy. I don't know what you guys are doing.
I appreciate it. Crazy, I guess, is in our respect the sport a compliment. So thank you.
Yes, well, absolutely, because you have to be to do what you do. It's there has to be a certain insanity to go with the talent that you have, and it's nothing but respect in that regards. We're joined by Greg Long here on WaXed. I think the last time we interviewed you, you had recently ruptured your eardrum, if I'm not mistaken, from a long hold down on Mavericks. Is that correct? Was that what the?
I think it would have been around then, yeah. So then recently,
and you were all over the news for this. You were at Cortes Bank, and I think this was like back in December. My personal opinion on this, and this is just me, I'm not speaking on anyone else's behalf but my own, is that WaveJet does not belong in the lineup. There's no place for it. If there's a motor on that craft, get it out of the lineup. That's just me speaking, all right? And the reason why I refer to that is because this was all over the news. If you hadn't heard, you basically got into a collision with Garrett McNamara surfing at arguably the most insane, scariest wave in the world, Cortes Bank, located 100 miles off the coast of Southern California. And you catch a wave, Garrett McNamara cuts you off. There's no argument about that. And you suffer this really gnarly hold down that literally had the entire surf community and beyond holding their breath, hoping you're okay. You came out of this okay, but it was really sketch. And again, this goes to show why many consider you, actually almost everybody considers you to be like the ambassador of big wave surfing, is that you always have the right things to say. You have nothing but kind words to say, and you didn't really have any accusatory tone towards Garrett. You were kind of like, look, man, let bygones be bygones, whatever. But despite the fact, he did cut you off, and it was a bit reckless to be having a WaveJet out in one of the craziest places in the world. Like, what's your opinion now? It's been some months have passed. Like, what are your thoughts on that whole incident at Cortes Bank?
Well, I agree with that. That there's a time and a place for a WaveJet, and I think that there's some great beneficial uses. But when you're in and amongst a crowded lineup, probably not the best place. And I think that lesson was learned, from that experience for both of us and everyone else, in the lineup, and I guess hearing it around the world. In no way do I blame Garrett for what happened. Mm-hmm. Had he not been there on that particular wave, I would have, set my line probably a little bit, different, and had been able to, surf myself, to a different part of the wave. If you actually look and deconstruct, the video of it, as I have, as thorough as you're gonna, ever do. Mm-hmm. I was too deep on that wave to begin with, and I wasn't going to make it.
Really?
So you can play this game of, if he wasn't there and I had surfed my way, 10 feet farther to the channel, would it have happened the way that it did? Maybe not. But at the same time, it very well could have been worse. In being out there, the second that you put your foot in the ocean or in anything in life, you need to be entirely, responsible for your actions, especially kind of, I guess a dangerous pursuit, of big wave surfing. In the moment that I go out there, I know that, anything can happen at any certain time. There's so many variables that are out of your control, with the ocean, especially, dealing with that energy. So, it was one of those, they said, there's a couple of, simple lessons we learned as far as the wave jet, and, for people maybe being a bit more conscious and aware of surroundings and big wave lineups, because, multiple people on a wave, is a commonplace thing in big wave surfing. Once you put your head down and commit, it's really difficult to kind of, pull back, and it's more often than not safer just to go, even if you are in front of somebody. But, part of avoiding that is, again, just being, very aware of who's, behind you and giving them the benefit of the doubt that, they probably are going to go. So even though, they might just, take the chance, and let them have the, the clear runway. But, that was, the most, incredible experience of my life. Obviously, I wouldn't be here, speaking of it in that light if, or speaking at all had it gone another way. But, it really compounded into just, I guess, the perfect storm of wipeouts. When I went down Cortes Bank, the waves are moving, so much faster, than anywhere else in the world. It's coming out of, thousands of feet of water where, your typical wave is only a couple hundred. And, the energy behind it, it doesn't focus it like a wave like Mavericks or Jaws, but, just that whole open ocean energy, folding over that, underwater seamount. There's, stuff that happens underwater there that I've never felt before. When I wiped out on that wave, it pushed me, so deep, and it wasn't, this overly violent, ragdoll beating, that you'll get at like a Jaws or Mavericks, but it was just this steady, feeling of, I'm literally, a world, below the surface here, and I'm not coming up. And,
wow.
I was wearing, everyone always asks, what kind of, flotation or, inflatable suit were you wearing? And I was in fact wearing both. I had a, flotation suit underneath my wetsuit, which gives me a bit of extra buoyancy, and then an inflatable wetsuit as well, which, didn't deploy. And, which in my opinion, it wasn't a problem. Those are, backup safety, nets, for, circumstances like that, when you might need to use them. But, I train and I prepare myself, to deal with these wipeouts without having to, rely on, an inflatable suit or anything, because, as I went to, prove right there, they don't always work. So when it didn't go off, it was, no big deal of, all right, you're going to be down here, for a long time, just deal with it. And, when you're dealing with big wave, wipeouts, there comes to a point where you're down for so long that you run the risk of, being held under for two waves, where you might not surface and get a breath before the second wave passes over you. In this particular scenario, once kind of the turbulence and everything subsided, I was very deep, and I started swimming to the surface, and I knew it was going to be close, getting my head up and getting the breath, and the second wave passing over me. And, as you're doing, kind of that swimming and making your break for the surface, you're using a lot of, oxygen, and energy trying to, swim through the turbulent water to get up there. And right as I was about ready to break the surface and get my breath, the second wave literally landed, right on me. I couldn't have been more than a foot or two from, the surface, getting my head out of water, when the next wave, just detonated right on top of me. And that wave, in fact, just knocked all the wind, that I had completely out of me, without getting a breath. So, I'd already, dealt with the one wave, and, then as I'm getting to the surface, and, it wasn't, at any point in a moment of panic, as I was, getting there. But as soon as that wave hit me, everyone knows what it feels like to be punched in the stomach and,
yes,
lose all your wind. There's this instant, insatiable desire of, oh my God, I have to breathe, and, meanwhile, I knew, all right, I was a second wave, you're going right back to where you were, 30 seconds ago. and you're not going to be getting that breath for a long time. So deal with it. And I was down there, went through that feeling of the involuntary kind of spasms and contractions through the diaphragm as your body's building up with CO2 and depleted of oxygen. It's a natural reaction. It's basically telling you have to breathe. And through all the training and preparation, I know that in fact when you are feeling that you have enough oxygen left in your bloodstream that it's just this defense mechanism to help, survival mechanism, that you can get past it and actually stay under a lot longer. So mentally just went to that place of you're okay, you're fine, this is what you trained for, not a big deal. And was down there dealing with the second wave when it got to the point of, okay, it's time to start swimming for the surface. All the turbulence was letting up, and I started 1-2 strokes I got before I heard and felt the third wave wash over me.
Jesus, third.
At that point, I knew I was in a pretty dire and desperate situation. That mentally I'd kind of gotten past those spasms in your body telling you have to breathe. 2 times. When you can get past it mentally, it'll actually physically subside. To where it becomes a bit more comfortable. And at this point, I knew that I was getting towards the very end. That you're starting to get the tingling sensations in my fingers and feet and all my extremities, and at which point I knew I didn't have long. So I actually started climbing my leash to kind of work my way up through the turbulent water. You usually have to wait for it to sort of settle down. And so start climbing my leash, just literally hand over fist and muscling my way up through. And it's not just a vertical climb of 25 feet or whatever it is. You're really fighting, struggling your way, and got to the tail section of my board, and I'm still in this real aerated water, and it's not helping me get to the surface. And I ended up letting go, taking one big stroke, and I was right there. I knew it. And then as I was going for my second one, that's when I lost consciousness. And my water safety team was right there. They're shadowing my every single move. They had seen that I hadn't surfaced after 3 waves, knew that I was going to be in if I was going to be conscious, in serious trouble and bad shape, and most likely not conscious. And which was the case. That before there was fourth wave, I was right there at the surface, nearly broke the surface, and actually the primary safety member, John Walla, saw my body in the aerated water right before the wave hit me. That's how close I actually was. And thankfully the fourth wave was a bit smaller, and because I was right there at the surface and had the flotation suit underneath me, that wave just kind of washed over me, and I floated up right on the back side of it, face down. At which point, I had DK Walsh, a really good friend from Hawaii, who was doing water safety, John Walla, and photographer, water safety Frank Chiardi from Northern California, all right there within seconds. So DK Walsh actually jumped off of his ski and got my head out of water. There was a fifth wave that washed over the two of us together. At which point, Frank Q and John Walla were both right there, got me up and onto the sled and to the safety of the channel and back to the boat. So it was actually on the ride back that I began regaining consciousness, and my recollection of the whole event, I guess, started coming back. And from there, obviously, there's a lot of questions as to when I actually blacked out, did I ingest and inhale any water. So called the Coast Guard, and they were there within about 5 hours time, and evacuated me out and to the hospital in San Diego.
And kudos to the rescue team, because like I said, 5 hours is a long time.
I'll second that one.
Yeah, yeah. If anyone,
it is.
And by the way, Greg, I want to just to show how much of a consummate professional you are. You answered like 5 questions Omar and I had. You knew what we were going to ask, and you just answered all those questions in one story.
I'll tell you, I've told that story no short of 1,000 times since it happened. So everyone's got the similar thoughts and questions.
But it's
the only issue is you might give me nightmares. that was the heaviest story I've heard in a long time.
It's fascinating that you remember so much of it leading right up to when you went unconscious. That's
in the moments after, when we were trying to recollect the events and doing the whole safety assessment of what I actually went through, which would dictate. Not really. It was one of those. It was such an extreme, accident that I had to be evacuated out of there. But the gravity of it, and if it was, if I was in critical condition or not. But yeah, instantly, on the way back to the boat, I remember, kind of flashing in and out of consciousness and hearing all the voices. And as soon as I got back onto the boat, instantly. Began vomiting. It was a pretty graphic, scene, a lot of, blood and fluid, but instantly, knew and remembered everything that had happened to the point of, blacking out. And, the first thing I asked is, who got me first? And, DK was right there, and he's like, I did. And I was just, put my hand up, grabbed his, told him I loved him, and, I just went through the motions. Anyone who's, I guess, dealt with, post-drowning victim knows it's not a pretty sight, and this, definitely wasn't. But it's just, I guess, the reality of the consequences of what you're doing out there. When you're, playing in a world of, the ocean and energies of that sort. So much can go wrong at any point in time, and that's just something you need to openly accept before you ever go out there and do it.
Especially at a place like Cortes Bank, when you're in the middle of the ocean, and the only thing that's creating these waves is a crazy underground mountain or underwater mountain, coupled with shipwrecks from people who try to create an island there. But that's a whole other story. But that whole place is insane and it's crazy. And thank you so much for sharing that just unbelievable story. And we're so glad that you're okay, Greg. We're joined by Greg Long here on WaXed. And shifting directions here, this coming Friday are the Billabong XXL Awards, also known as Greg Long Night. And on the phone right now is the man who organizes this event, Bill Sharp. It's been a while since we've talked to him. It's been a very long time. Bill, how are you doing, man?
I am fantastic. How are you guys this morning?
We're good. And you're on the phone with Greg Long as well, who's the star of the evening at the Billabong XXL Awards, of course. And I speak for my behalf. But the awards are next Friday. You're the man who runs this entire show. I'm actually going to show up this year. Thank you for inviting me every year. I'm actually going to take you up on it finally. What can people expect other than just worshiping Greg Long?
Well, Greg Long is, as always, nominated for an award or two, and he's had more awards over the years than anyone else. But there's also quite a stellar cast, and really this is the year of the paddle-in. It's been the year where every single Ride of the Year nominees for the first time ever was done the old-fashioned way, paddling in. There's only in fact, several of the nominees for the biggest wave are paddled in also. So we're really seeing the mechanized assist kind of fall off this year.
And see, okay, so now we have a quick argument here, by the way, because I thought Greg Long had won the most awards. You just said that, but Greg says Shane Dorian's won more. So who's right?
Oh, well, I'm going to have to do a little math here, maybe at a commercial break or something. I could have sworn, it's got to be close between the two of them.
It's got to be.
And they've both won in an entire array, between Ride of the Year, biggest waves, biggest, Pacifico paddle, tube, and overall performance. They're not just one-trick ponies at all.
That's true. That is true. I mean, they are the stars of big wave surfing. There's no question about that. Bill, I'm sorry we had to keep this running really short. But if people want to enjoy the Billabong XXL Awards, it's happening next Friday. Is it going to be on TV? Is there a webcast? How can people enjoy this? And
there will be a live webcast. It's actually invitation only. We've got about 2,000 people is all we can fit in that evening. But on next Friday, the 3rd, starting at 7:30, there will be a webcast at billabongxxl.com, and then you'll be able to see the 1-hour show on ESPN on June 9th.
Beautiful. So it's going to be on ESPN on June 9th. And again, the webcast is going to be this coming Friday, May 3rd, starting at 7:30. It's billabongxxl.com. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Beautiful. Bill, man, I'm really looking forward to partying with you on Friday. I don't know. You might be really busy and just running around. I'm not sure. But hopefully we'll...
I'll party with you, Cyrus.
Yeah, I'll tell you, once it's over, I'll be partying.
Excellent.
The pre-party, not so much.
Beautiful. And hopefully we'll drag O-Dog back there. It's been a few years since he's been in the event, right?
Yeah. No, it wouldn't be the same without him. So
I know.
He used to DJ. He even overshadowed when the Foo Fighters played last year. So we'd love to have him back.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up real quick. But how did you guys had the Foo Fighters at the Billabong XXL Awards last year? I saw those pictures. I was so pissed I didn't go at that point. How did you pull that, man? That's a big draw.
Well, big wave riders, they have swag. It's simple as that. And, guys like, rock stars really like to hang out with the Greg Longs, the Shane Dorians, and the rest. And I just get swept up in the rest of it. So, it's just that way.
Huge phallic men like to be with each other. I totally understand.
Absolutely.
Yeah, there's no question about that.
Right.
Greg, were you partying with the Foo Fighters last year?
We had a good time last year, yeah. There was definitely a couple beers shared with Dave Grohl. It was a good time.
Dude, Dave Grohl, he's literally, if you're into music at all, Dave Grohl is the epitome of a rock star. I cannot believe he was there. Well, Bill, thank you so much for taking a few minutes out of your time to come on. It's billabongxxl.com is the website. This is the Billabong XXL Awards are this coming Friday, May 3rd, starting at 7:30, and just visit the website billabongxxl.com to catch a webcast of that, and it's going to be on ESPN on June 9th, and I'm sure we'll talk about that on the show again shortly. Bill, thank you so much for coming on the show, man.
All right, thanks a lot. Keep up the good work.
Will do, thank you. And Greg, before we let you go, dude, promote away, dude. Like, what's going on with you? I know, dude, you're like, humility is the name of the game with Greg Long, and I have nothing but respect for that. I mean, you're not even on Twitter, if I'm not mistaken, but you do have sponsors, you do have people that pay the bills. Who's taking care of you?
Absolutely, I wouldn't be here, today if it weren't for the support of a good number of people. Billabong being, my primary supporter, along with Von Zipper sunglasses, XL wetsuits, a number of years of just unbelievable, support and dedication to, myself and my passionate pursuit of, big wave surfing and adventure travel. Christensen surfboards out of San Diego down there. Chris has become more than just my shaper, but one of my best friends. I wouldn't be here without him. And obviously the love and support of my family. This is one of the craziest years of my life. A lot of ups and downs and trials and tribulations, and just happy and still be here with everyone. You guys, and, this party of life carries on.
Exactly, and all you can do is just appreciate and enjoy every moment that's here. And what's next for you? I mean, what after the Billabong XXL Awards are coming up on Friday, and again, Bill Sharp just mentioned he's the guy that runs the event. It's billabongxxl.com is the website. You can catch the entire webcast of that this coming Friday, starting at 7:30. After that, you're gonna have to deal with the hangover for about a day or two. And then what's next? What are you gonna do?
We're just kind of turning seasons. North Pacific winter is finished up here. We'll be starting to look at the South Pacific, South Atlantic, Indian Ocean. So you know what? At this point in my life, just really enjoying the moment. Where in years past, there's so much intensity of oh my God, I have to go, find the next big swell, and was jet setting from one to the next. But really just content and doing exactly that, letting the world kind of unfold. And obviously the focus and dedication to ride the biggest swells hasn't subsided at all, surprisingly. So I'll be on the move, kind of following swells. Usually, as I said, living down in South Africa, kind of the months of June through September. So all these things kind of on the radar, but just letting it unfold as it's going to.
Beautiful. O-Dog, you have any last words?
No, man. Just have a good time and take a couple shots for me.
Yes.
XXL.
We will. All right, Greg, man, always a pleasure. Love you, brother, and we'll see you on.
Likewise, guys. Take care. Thanks for having me on.
Likewise. We'll see you on Friday, man. That was Greg Long, the greatest big wave surfer on the planet. We'll wrap things up next here on WaXed on ESPN 1700. That interview with Greg Long, unfortunately for Natalie Rose, we didn't have time for the news this week. Natalie, I'm so sorry.
No, it's all good. It was an awesome interview. So
It was You know, when you have like look,
when you have opportunities like that, you can't pass them up.
You're absolutely right, and we've been a friend of Greg Long for a very long time, and vice versa. We've had the guy on the show for, when we first had him on, like, it was even before he won the contest in Mavericks, I think, right, O-Dog?
Yep. No, and Greg is such a good guy, and what people don't know is he's so accomplished in the full sport of surfing. I mean, he won the NSSA Nationals as an amateur, climbed the ranks, and, now, like you said, is probably, I'd say, one of, if not the most famous big wave surfer. He's got to be, top 2, top 5. But, great guy.
Absolutely. And, if you want to catch the Billabong XXL Awards, it's this coming Friday, May 3rd. It starts at 7:30. You can watch the webcast. It's fun. Visit billabongxxl.com. That is the website. And, again, our apologies to Natalie Rose for not getting to the news. That's my dog shaking his collar right there. Again, visit our website, WaXed Radio. If you missed that interview with Greg Long, a fascinating interview talking about everything that's been going on with him, including that crazy event at Cortes Bank. O-Dog, another great week. Great show.
Right, brother.
Yeah.
Right.
What do you got going on the rest of this weekend?
He's getting drunk.
There'll be definitely some barbecuing going down. I might run out in the water for a little while. It's actually perfect for longboarding, so might grab my good old 9.2 Takayama and have a good time, and pray for surf next week.
Beautiful. And Natalie, how about you? What do you got going on this weekend?
I'm working, and then I'm going drinking as well. I gotta find the nearest watering hole. I'm thirsty.
Love that girl. Alrighty. Well, if you missed any part of the show, including that extensive and beautiful interview we just did with Greg Long, visit our website, waxedradio.com. Follow us on Twitter at WaxedRadio. Again, our Twitter handle is at WaxedRadio. Follow us there. And next week we're gonna have Carissa Moore on the program. She's a former world champion, and she's currently #1, so she's looking to get her second world title in the bag. And we're going to have her on the program. And, again, join us then. And check out our website, waxedradio.com. Coming up next, the greatest golf show in Southern California, Farmers Inside the Ropes. That is next. I'm Cyrus Saatsaz on behalf of Natalie Rose and Omar Etcheverry. This is WaXed on ESPN 1700.
Can't do it. No. We'll do it live. Do it live. Thing sucks.